The Burgundy Luncheon Club. It is hard to get in. Is it hard to get in?
Send me an email, and if you know somebody who's there, there's a good chance you can get in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does it cost?
$40 at the door, and that just pays for the soup and sandwich buffet and a couple of glasses of wine, and that's it.
Pretty good.
It is pretty good.
So free discussion.
Free discussion.
Do you know ahead of time what the topic is going to be or who's going to be there, or is it a surprise at the Burgundy Luncheon Club?
No surprises. We don't like surprises there. The topics are, I try to get the topics together about 2 weeks before the end of the month, send an email out to everybody saying, here are the topics. And then if people would like to come, they send me a request. And we usually get about 70 requests for 40, 45 seats.
Okay, and they're not heady necessarily. It's like, for instance, is Vancouver going to hell in a handbasket?
Right.
Question mark.
Right.
What was that about?
Well, that was the very first one that we had. That was when we were having all the shootings and all the gang-related deaths right back at the very beginning. So, you know, at the end of this month coming up, we've got 2 confirmed guests already. We got one of the very high-ranking people at the Vancouver Police Department talking not directly about the riots, but about the whole, how do the police look at themselves? How do they do their internal examinations of things that happen? And we've also got Wilfred Littlechild coming, who's one of the commissioners of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
Yes, very much so.
One of the interesting things, Fanny, that we can do here is we can kind of turn the topics kind of in a way that we'd like. And an amazing, and the whole thesis of the book is that by having this open discussion, without even trying, things happen. Right? We've been able to highlight causes that people have stepped up and say, gee, I'd like to help that. Okay,
so how do you want to die? For instance, how do you want to die?
There you go.
Where do you want to die?
Gay Klitsky from the Vancouver Hospice Society is a very, very determined woman who started a hospice up in Prince George, successful. And if you remember, Fanny, it had to be late May or June, there was a concern out at UBC about a hospice being developed out there. But look at the aging baby boom population. This whole element of hospice care is relatively strange to us here, but it's a very important part of what's happening in the elder care.
Yes. And if you talk to somebody, a doctor who works in hospice and works in the hospice, they'll say, death is very spiritual. Death is mean, but it's very spiritual time. And it's most doctors, palliative care physicians I've had on, will always tell you that this is a very rewarding job.
And that was another presentation where you could have heard a pin drop in the room.
I bet. It was amazing. Because the fear of death, I mean, it's one of the big ones.
The respect of death, the respect of that time, I think. It wasn't the fear, Fanny, so much as people saying, here's a way to die that I never thought about, right?
Yes, and sometimes it's just a surprise, you just drop. But it's nice if you can think about it and wind a few things up and lose the fear.
I think
then you have to get into that other discussion, reincarnation.
Yeah, we haven't touched on that one yet. If you know somebody we should have in, let me know.
Would you consider having somebody like a Hell's Angel on, an ex-con, somebody who's been in the trenches, maybe a reformed Hell's Angel? Would you go there?
We came close to that. We got a reformed, I wouldn't say he's reformed, but an undercover policeman, Bill Michler. Bill was with inside the Hells Angels and the Columbia drug cartels for like 15 years underground.
Wow, and he's still alive.
Still alive, thriving,
and willing to talk about it.
And came in and gave us a fascinating inside view, like how bad these guys are, like what they do, the way they work, how the gang wars work, and how to
human smuggling and everything, the drugs and the gangs and the sex trade and all of the above.
What we've found, Fanny, is the people who are at the front lines, and a perfect example, and I think if there's one area that I think everybody in our group has continually loved to follow, it's the whole urban Aboriginal story. We had Gloria Raphael come out from Grandview Elementary School. Here's a woman who, on her own, just started a very simple community garden behind the Grandview Elementary School, which is just off Commercial Drive, not far from where I live. And with all respect to the Vancouver School Board, there are a lot of different protocols and hurdles to go through, and she got it done. And this garden is a community that helps urban Aboriginal kids and their parents come together and work together and be together and create a family environment right in the middle of a pretty tough
Sure, and an inner city school, if you teach kids how to grow things.
You got it.
How good is that? And you grow the carrot and you eat the carrot too. That part.
You do, and we had a couple of our members, Fanny, stepped up right after that presentation and said, what can we do? So they raised some money and helped, and they're all part of this little community right now that is just
so your love of ideas runs deep, obviously, and current affairs. Why? Where did it begin for you?
You know, I think as a young child at a time when newspapers, I lived in a little community called Grand Prairie up in northern Alberta. I think we had one CBC channel, but we had the newspaper, and I was just
You had Barbara Frum.
We had Barbara Frum, yeah. I was a voracious newspaper reader, and then started as a journalist, and kind of went on from there.
And lived in Paris.
Lived in Paris,
10 years.
Yeah, 10 years.
What took you to Paris?
I played professional hockey in Germany, and then I got an offer to go play in France, and fell in love with Paris, as who wouldn't, and did my graduate studies in economics in Paris, and was a
smart.
reporter with the Southern News, covered all of Western Europe out of Paris for Southern News.
Oh, great, good gig.
Back then, when people were reading newspapers.
Yes, absolutely, and I still am.
As
I always will, as long as I can find one. I always will. The Daily Beast is fine.
Yes.
You know, or the New York Times online, fine,
Yeah.
but not the same.
No, absolutely.
No, not the same. So, the very roots of salon, or even in your family, discussion in your family.
Absolutely.
From where?
You know what? I think that comes from the time in Europe as well, too, Fanny, because the time around my ex-wife's family, a big, loving family full of discussion and ideas and passion. You cannot live in France and escape the debate of ideas in a very interesting, passionate form. It's always around a table, a family table, or with friends. But that whole idea of debating ideas as part of the dinner conversation, it's not quite a North American custom, but you you live it when you live over there.
Well, sure, but the time of Mitterrand and...
I was in 10th of May 1981. I was there when François Mitterrand became the first socialist president of the Republic. That was such an amazing, amazing time. The whole debate over socialism versus the right-wing side of it, but it was the abolition of the death penalty. There were so many things that were happening, the breaking out of so many morals and social customs. It was a rich, Bernard-Henri Lévy, the philosophers. If you're a philosopher in France, you're heralded, right?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, we'll talk later, because there was somebody here who grew up with a father who was a very famous philosopher, and he came and talked about what they discussed at their table.
Absolutely.
Hello, I mean, we're saying pass the gravy.
Yes.
Or
and they're saying, why is there gravy?
Right. Are there more beans? Family lay off. There's not any dessert. That kind of thing. Not really. I came from a political family, so we're all debating politics. In the U.S., they just did that more.
But in France, they don't debate politics, they debate ideas.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
Oh, no, we're fighting about who to vote for.
That's right.
Who did what right, and all of that. So the Burgundy Luncheon Club, and the main idea from the lessons from Burgundy Luncheon Club, I think, is to inspire others to start their own Chardonnay Luncheon Club.
Whatever you want to do, but I think there is a demand, Fanny, among any other walk of society to get together and talk about things like this.
Okay.
Anybody can do this.
And you debate social media, the use of social media, how it's changing our world and where it should go. I read an article the other day where they're going to stop teaching kids to write.
What do you think of that?
I think that's horrendous.
I do too.
Because I think there's a direct link between the brain and the hand. And I think great ideas come when you write. And I can't imagine that every child doesn't, every human shouldn't write, as we should do art and draw.
Absolutely.
And like the great graphic designers of the world can draw.
And they know how to put capitals in letters.
They do. But with graphic design, now they're using so many computers, and some of the graphic designers really can't draw. But they're not as good as the ones who can, in my humble opinion.
Well, I think your humble opinion is right on the money.
Well, good, then I can come to lunch.
You can, anytime you want.
How nice to meet you.
Fanny, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. The Burgundy Luncheon Club, lessons from the Burgundy Luncheon Club by Rick Peterson and members of the Burgundy Luncheon Club.